top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry. Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist Larry Shakman, a top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry. Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist Larry Shakman, a top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry. Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist Larry Shakman, a top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry. Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist Larry Shakman, a top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week,
Good morning, everybody. So welcome to the Hump Day version of the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. And we're going to be on for about the next 45 minutes to an hour. And keep in mind and remember that we broadcast live every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. from the studios of WCPT Radio, 8:20 a.m. So every Saturday, be sure to tune in if you're in the Chicago metro area at 8:20 a.m. and you'll catch us live there as well, joined by my co-host, Dylan Kramer. So today, I really want to drill down and talk about the Sitzer-Burnett class action lawsuit that was brought by select sellers against the NAR and several large brokerages. And there was a settlement that was reached last Friday by the NAR. And again, I just want to drill that down a little bit. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of TV stations, CNN, MSN, and a lot of things you'll see on the internet. There's just a lot of misinformation going around about commissions, how much competition there is in terms of commission. Has there ever been any collusion regarding brokers keeping commissions artificially high? We're going to address all of that today. Before I get started, I want to read what some might interpret as a emotionally charged uh, response to Kevin Sears and the leadership at NAR, but this is just simply my opinion. And although I've talked to many real estate brokers who agree with me and attorneys as well who are questioning the settlement, this is my opinion. In addition to that, we'll drill down some of the finer points of the settlement and some of the things you're hearing out there that aren't necessarily true. One thing I also want to say, though, is the NAR does a great job at some things, and other things I think are somewhat questionable. But again, that's with all organizations, and that's life, right? Some things you do good, some things you can improve on. Now, the good thing about change, and this is a massive sea change from how real estate has been handled, and particularly how commissions have been handled, probably for the past 100 years, or maybe a little less than that, but probably for around that length of time. So this is a massive sea change. I think it needs to be addressed. But the good thing about massive sea changes is that it brings innovation. It brings new models. And it typically, when that happens, it will benefit the consumer, which is really what is most important. So before we get into the finer points, I'm going to read an open letter to Kevin Sears and the NAR leadership. And again, slightly emotionally charged. I might not feel exactly this way 30 days from now, but it's how I feel now. And it's how I think a lot of brokers out there, at least that I've talked to, feel now. So without further ado, I feel like you gave up and didn't fight for us. We had a great system that benefited all parties to the transaction. It was completely transparent. I and other agents will, of course, survive and thrive, but this will hurt first-time home buyers, VA, and FHA buyers. In addition to that, we are being maligned by money-grabbing attorneys who are making 33.33% in all likelihood of $418 million in settlement over a 4-year period, and headlines that are falsely spreading misinformation while disparaging agents who tirelessly work on behalf of their clients to split what typically is 2.5% with their brokers. Moreover, I have been in this business for 23 years and have never been told what commission I had to charge. There has never been any collusion between brokers, and there has always been an opportunity for consumers to negotiate with brokers regarding what their commission is. There are many models out there now that prove that point. Consumers can put their house on the MLS currently for as low as $99, and in some cases for free if they choose to handle all aspects of the transaction themselves. The fact that it only took the jury 2.5 hours to come to a decision, in my opinion, speaks volumes. The bottom line, there has never been any conspiracy to keep commissions artificially high. And frankly, in my opinion, your attorneys failed to make the case on our behalf. I'm sure, and I hope it's not the case, this email will go into your garbage heap of disappointing emails that you receive. This really isn't a surprise to me because I personally don't look to you to be my advocate. And at some points, I feel like I'm just another two-legged profit center for the NAR and all the associations that I pay dues to every year. I wonder when you'll raise your dues to offset the thousands of agents that will leave the business as a result of your poor stewardship and this settlement. That, however, is not the real tragedy. The real tragedy is how this will affect home ownership for thousands who may never realize that dream as a result of, in my opinion, this ill-conceived settlement. A response isn't necessary, nor would it unwind the ineptitude of our representation. Again, in my opinion. I'll continue to fight for my clients like I have for going on 24 years. My buyers, my sellers, the renters I work with, and I'll continue to wonder who's fighting for us out here on the front lines. Signed, Disappointed in You. So that is my little letter that I wrote to the NAR and to Kevin Sears and leadership of the NAR. And again, slightly emotionally charged, but that's how I feel right now. And the reason I feel that way is because I think this settlement was very ill-conceived. I think it's going to be very murky for buyers out there. And we're going to get into some of those points now. So there was a recent article in Axios that explained some of the finer points, where we were before Friday of last week and where we are now. So let's talk about why it matters. The fact is that this could potentially, and probably will, and I think it's a good thing, open up the model, let's say, the real estate model for new and innovative models that will give consumers a chance to keep more money in their pockets. And that's awesome. That is awesome. And that's always been the case in real estate, in my opinion, because it's always been a competitive market. Nobody has ever set a commission at 6 or 7%. Nobody has ever told me or any other broker out there what we have to charge in commission. And nobody has ever limited the ability for consumers to negotiate what their commission is, and sellers particularly. So why it matters is this could open up a tightly controlled market to what Axios is calling genuine competition. I don't believe that. There's always been genuine competition. There are models out there now, like I expressed in the open letter to the NAR, where sellers can put their house on the market for $99 and in some cases for free on the MLS if they choose to handle all aspects of the transaction themselves. And most sellers don't choose to do that because it's a very complicated transaction and it's a very emotional transaction. And in most cases, you really don't want to represent yourself in an emotional transaction. That's why athletes don't represent themselves when they're negotiating their contracts. That's why actors don't represent themselves when they're negotiating their contracts, because when you're placing a value on yourself, sometimes decisions can be emotionally charged and actually cause you to lose money and leave money on the table rather than having somebody else act as your fiduciary and represent you to get you your best deal possible. And that's what we do as real estate brokers. So although they say open up a tightly controlled market to genuine competition, I think the competition has always been there, and create opportunities for new players and business models in a relatively old-fashioned world. Well, I'm going to disagree with that, because there's been for years models on the market, as I've stated, that sellers you could put your property, first of all, you can sell your property without a broker whatsoever. You don't need to use a real estate broker. You don't need to pay any commissions. Nobody is mandating that sellers have to use a real estate broker or have to pay a real estate commission. You don't. Moreover, there are models out there, as I mentioned, where you could put your property on the MLS and open it up to all brokers and all of their clients for $99, and in some cases for free. So there is competition out there, and there is a myriad of models out there that sellers can choose from, determining how they want to sell their home. So I think that's a little murky, if you will, their explanation of how it will open up a tightly controlled old-fashioned market. It could do for real estate what the internet did for stock trading and bring down broker fees. Well, broker fees have been reduced over the years. I mean, way back in the day, brokers typically charged 7%. You rarely see brokers charge 7% anymore. As a matter of fact, the average commission now, at least where I sit in the Chicago metro market, is typically right around 5%. So a lot of things that you're hearing out there about the 6% commission is going to disappear. There is no mandated 6% commission. There is no mandated 7% commission, and there is no mandated commission at all. You don't have to pay a commission. You don't have to work with real estate agents. You can sell your property on your own, and you can even list it on the MLS for a very small amount of money if you choose to do that. So I think we need to be more accurate when it comes to explaining what was before Friday and what may take place as of July 15th, if all of this gets mandated. And of course, we have to wait for the DOJ to comment on it. And in addition to that, we have to wait for the judge to sign off on it. Now, here's the impact. The impact could likely mean lower costs for sellers who brought the lawsuit as a class action. The impact on buyers is far murkier and far more confusing, because how it works right now is typically sellers pay between 5 and 6% commission, and that commission on the sale price of their home. So for instance, if you are selling a $300,000 home and you are paying a 5% commission, then you're looking at somewhere around $7,500. That commission is split between the buyer's agent or the selling agent, the buyer's agent, and the listing brokerage. And that commission is further split between the broker and the designated agent that is handling that transaction. So that's how it has typically worked for many, many decades. And like I said, in Illinois, our average commission is probably somewhere around 5%. Typically, the agent, like I mentioned, the listing agent and buyer's agent split that commission, and then it further gets split between that agent and the brokerage where they hang their license. So it effectively means that the buyer's agent, well, what the article is saying and what many are broadcasting is that the buyer's agent is working for the seller, not the buyer. I'm going to have to disagree with that as well. When I work for a buyer, I am working for that buyer. I am trying to get that buyer the best possible price. I am trying to get that buyer the best possible terms. And when we do a home inspection and some things come up on that home inspection, I am negotiating on behalf of the buyer to get those things fixed or to potentially get a credit for the things that come up on a home inspection. So, the fact that you're hearing that in the current system, buyer's agents are working on behalf of the sellers is completely untrue. That is just not the facts. The facts are the seller's agent, the listing agent, is the fiduciary for the seller. The buyer's agent is the fiduciary for the buyer. And we, as buyer's agents, I act as a buyer's agent as well as a seller's agent. So I represent sellers and buyers. But when I'm working as a buyer's agent, I am representing the buyer and I am doing my best to get them the fairest and the best terms for them. And I'm always working on their behalf. And as well, the listing agent is always working on behalf of the seller and always will. So, I take a little umbrage with the fact that, this article and many others are saying that in the current system, the buyer's agent is really working on behalf of the seller. That's just not true. And here's the thing about any negotiation. No negotiation gets done unless all parties feel like it's a fair settlement, that the terms are fair, and that they're each getting a little bit of what they want, because nobody ever gets everything they want in a negotiation, whether it's an athlete negotiating a $300 million contract, whether it's an actor negotiating a contract for a series. You never get everything you want. So a meeting of the minds has to exist in order for a negotiation to come to a successful outcome. So it's important to realize that you're never going to get everything you want, but listing agents represent sellers, buyer's agents represent buyers. So I want to make that clear, and that's actually how it works. Under NAR rules, sellers are required currently to advertise the buyer agent commission on the multiple listing service, the database where real estate agents put homes for sale. So let's drill that down a little bit. So every listing on the MLS has a little box there, and that little box indicates what the commission is, the co-op commission is, that is being paid to the buyer's broker. So for instance, if you're selling a $400,000 home, that little co-op commission box shows the commission that the listing brokerage is going to pay to the buyer's brokerage once that deal closes. Excuse me, I'm going to take a little drink here. So that shows what the buyer's broker is getting paid. So let's take, for instance, a $400,000 home. And on the MLS listing, as of now, and in the last many, many decades, it shows on the MLS what the buyer's agent is going to get paid, what the buyer's brokerage is going to get paid by the listing brokerage. So if it's 2.5% on a $400,000 sale, at the close of that sale, the listing brokerage is going to pay the buyer's brokerage $10,000. That's 2.5% of 400,000. That is no longer going to be the case. So, and what I mean by that is it's no longer going to be the case that that fee, not that fee, but that commission is going to be indicated on the MLS. That box is going to disappear. It is not going to be there anymore. And no longer can sellers advertise what they're willing to pay in commissions to the buyer's brokerage. They can, however, say what concessions they are willing to give to the buyer's brokerage in terms of closing cost fees to the buyer's brokerage. So very often at a closing, the buyer will either ask for a 3% closing cost credit to go towards all prepaids, closing costs, lawyers' fees, and whatnot. For now, moving forward, if this is ratified and if the judge approves and after the DOJ comments on it, as of July 15th, that box will no longer show a commission. However, the seller can still, and the buyer's brokerage or the buyer's agent and the seller's agent can still communicate off the MLS in terms of a concession that the seller is willing to pay in order to help the buyer meet the commitment they've made to the buyer's broker. So, for instance, now moving forward, before you ever show a home to a buyer, you must have an agreement in place that states what you're going to do for that buyer and how much it's going to cost that buyer. And if the seller is not willing to pay any concession after you negotiate that off the MLS with the listing agent, then the buyer will be responsible for that. So what that means is, in many cases, the buyer may end up paying that commission, whereas in the past, the commission was split on the total listing commission. So if it was a 5% commission, 2.5 would go to the seller, 2.5 would go to the buyer's brokerage. Now that's not going to be the case if this is ratified, and in all likelihood it will be. So moving forward, any commissions, any advertising of commissions, and what the listing agency is willing to pay the buyer's brokerage is no longer going to be allowed. And that is going to have to be off the MLS, and that is going to have to be in the form of a concession that the seller will make to the buyer to help them meet that commitment that they've made to the broker that has worked for 2, 3, or 4 months helping them find a house. And sometimes you find a house quicker than that. I've worked with people I found houses for in a weekend, and I've worked with people that I've shown 170 houses to before they actually found a house that they liked and stayed in the transaction. So, these are very, very important nuances that are changing. So again, no longer can sellers, as of July 15th, advertise in the MLS what they are willing to pay buyers' brokerages. That is now going to be all off the MLS, and that is all going to be in the form of a concession that the seller makes to a buyer in order to help them meet that obligation that they made to the broker that they're working with that has helped them find this home and help the seller sell their home. Now, if the seller says, nope, we're not offering any concession, then the buyer is going to be paying that brokerage fee to the seller or to the agent that is working with them. So that could be kind of sticky because, for instance, and the reason I brought that up in my open letter is, for instance, VA buyers, our veterans out there that use an awesome product called the VA loan, they are not allowed to pay buyer's agents anything whatsoever. So they cannot pay buyer's agents any kind of fee whatsoever to work with them. So this is where it gets kind of murky, and there's going to have to be a lot of drilling down in terms of how all of these loans work. Lenders are going to have to take a close look at how this all works, because this is going to kind of put it's going to kind of make it, like I said, murky for VA buyers, because they cannot pay agents or agencies to help them find homes and close on the home they eventually find. So if the seller is not willing to offer a concession to the buyer to help them meet that obligation, then they're kind of out of luck as far as a VA loan goes. And so again, this is where it gets kind of murky for buyers. A couple of other things we want to cover is we've already covered that sellers can no longer advertise what they are going to pay a buyer's broker to sell their home on the MLS. They can't do that anymore. That's not the case. That's going to be off the MLS. Now, home buyers, so for instance, will not see, well, home buyers right now never have seen that number, but agents have. So a lot of the speculation is that, let's say on the MLS, there's a property that is advertising on the MLS that the listing brokerage is willing to pay 3% to the buyer's broker if they close on that deal with their buyer. But then there's another property that states they'll only pay 2%. Or another property, I've seen properties that have said they'll only pay 1%. And some of the things you're hearing out there is that brokers won't show homes for less than 2.5% or 3% or 2% or whatever. I have never found that to be the case. I have been paid, when working with buyers, anywhere from 1% to 3%, and typically right around 2 to 2.5%, typically right around 2.5%. But I've never made that decision in terms of what houses I'll show the buyer based on what commission is being paid to my brokerage and what I'll split with my brokerage. That's never been a concern of mine, and I'll put it out there. I do not believe that's ever been a concern of any broker that is working with a buyer. The bottom line is, as a buyer's agent, we are your fiduciary. We are there to help you find the house that you want to buy, regardless of the commission. So I have a little problem with everyone speculating that brokers will only show homes that are where the co-op commission is 2.5% or higher, or 2% or higher. I have never found that to be the case. And does it happen? It probably does happen in some occasions, but I do not find that to be the norm. I have never found that to be the norm. And again, I've been doing this for 23 plus years, and I have sold hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate. And that has never been a factor when I've worked with a buyer. And in my opinion, it's not been a factor in most cases across the board. Does it happen? Sure. But I don't feel that that's the norm. Now let's talk a little bit about sellers. So, a lot of the headlines that you're hearing now is the 6% commission is going away. The 7% commission is going away. There has never been a mandated commission that I've been told I have to charge. I have worked for several different brokerages. I've worked for small boutique brokerages. I've worked for Coldwell Banker. I've worked for a lot of different brokerages. I have never been told what commission I have to charge a seller. That is another huge piece of misinformation you're hearing out there. Sellers have always had the opportunity to negotiate with their broker what the commission is. I've had sellers negotiate commissions with me down to 4%. I've had other sellers be fine with 5 and 6%. Me personally, my commission is rarely over 5%. And that's the average typically in the market that I'm in. I can't speak for other markets nationally, but I would suggest that it's probably pretty close. So the average commission, let's say it's 5%, but sellers can negotiate that any way they want. They don't have to list with a brokerage for 5%. They can negotiate that down to 4% if they want, or 3%. They have the ability to negotiate whatever they want and work with the broker they want that will meet their terms, or for that matter, not work with any brokerage at all and sell their homes by owner. Now, that's another good point, because I've worked with many for sale by owners, sellers selling their house by themselves off the MLS. And I've worked with many for sale by owners and helped them tried to help them sell their home, consulted with them on what their starting price should be, what they should do to get their home in order so that they can get the best price possible. And I haven't even charged them a dime for doing that. And if they don't sell it on their own, my hope is that through the consultation that I've given them and the service that I've provided them for free, if they decide to sell their home with a broker, maybe they'll consider me as a result of my willingness to help them to try and sell it on their own. So there just has never been collusion. It's ludicrous. The headlines that you're seeing out there, where you're hearing how there's been collusion in the past of brokerages artificially keeping commissions high. Just not the case. That is just not the case as far as my experience goes in 23 years. And I think this is pretty common across the board. There has never been any collusion between brokerages to keep commissions artificially high. Brokers and sellers, they negotiate what the commission will be, and that's what it is. Sellers are not obligated to pay any specific commission whatsoever, and it's up to them to negotiate their best deal with the broker that they choose to work with. So, I wanted to put that out there as well, because you're hearing a lot about the 6% commission is going away, the 7% commission is going away. There is no mandated commission, and there is nobody telling us what we have to charge in terms of our commission when we sell a house. And there is nothing telling sellers what they have to pay when they sell their house with a brokerage. So that has always been that way. Let's see if there's anything else we want to cover here. The key question, I think, is how will buyers agents get paid? So this is where it gets a little bit murky. And what I mean by that, how will buyers agents get paid? So if the seller, since there is no longer, as of July 15th, going to be a little box on the MLS that states co-op commission 2.5%. So that would mean the buyer's brokerage is going to get paid 2.5% of the sale price. Again, on a $400,000 home, that would be $10,000 by the listing brokerage. That goes away. So when that goes away, you must negotiate a concession from the selling agency to the buyer's agency to help the buyer meet the commitment they made to the buyer's brokerage that they entered into an agreement with. So if the seller does not agree, and this all has to be done before you show any home. So before I work with the buyer as of July 15th, I have to have a signed agreement that states what I'm going to do for the buyer and how much that's going to cost. So if we come to an agreement that it's 2.5%, and these are all the things I'm going to do for the buyer, and you are going to have access to my entire group of people that I work with, attorneys, home inspectors, and the whole lot, and you agree to pay 2.5% for that, then you're agreeing to pay 2.5%. However, when we find a house that you want to purchase, you fall in love with this home, you want to purchase this home, we put an offer in, then I'm going to include in that offer an addendum to the listing agent that the seller agrees to pay X amount to the buyer's brokerage to help the buyer meet their commitment to what they said they would pay their broker. So if the seller comes back and says, nope, we're not coming up with any concession, or if they come back and say, well, we won't pay 2.5%, but we'll pay 1%, that's going to mean the buyer is going to be on the hook for that 1.5%. And in many cases, that's going to skew the deal because the buyer may not have that 1.5%. So that's where it gets a little bit murky. I think in most cases, sellers realize that to get their house out there and really get it in front of buyers and buyers brokers that incentivizes people to buy their home, I'm not sure at this point anyway that it's going to greatly reduce the buyer's broker commission. It may, and only time will tell. But, we're going to see how this all gets sussed out in terms of how this is going to affect buyers. But buyers can definitely be on the hook. Now, at the same time, let's say you sign a buyer's agreement with your buyer for 2.5%, and you're going to provide all these services and access to all the professionals that you work with. And the buyer agrees to 2.5%, but the seller comes back and says, I'll only agree to a 2% concession to the buyer in order to help them meet that commitment they've made to their broker. Well, the buyer's broker can certainly come back and say, I'll agree to that, and then that deal gets done. So it's just going to be a little murkier than it has been in the past. But it still remains to be seen whether commissions are going to be greatly reduced. And the thing that really irks me and really gets me more than anything is there has never been a mandated commission that sellers have to pay. They have always had the ability to negotiate with their brokerages, and they have all the brokerages that they decide to work with, and they have always had the ability to not work with brokers at all. They've always had the ability to go out there and the choice to sell their homes on their own, either by owner or through a extremely discounted brokerage. Like, for instance, there's brokerages out there where they'll put your house on the market for $99. They'll put your house on the MLS for $99. They will list your home on the MLS. They'll even get pictures of your homes taken for $99. And then they have a fee for service thing. If they're going to do the paperwork, they may charge you a little more for that. And if they're going to do some other things, help you with home inspection negotiations, there may be a little more charge for that. It becomes more a la carte. But there's plenty of models out there right now that sellers can choose if that's the route they want to go. The fact is, most sellers don't want to go that route for the reason that I mentioned earlier, and that is it's a very emotional sale. It's a very emotional transaction, and it's not always the best choice for sellers to represent themselves when it comes to making putting a value on yourself. And very, very often it's better to let somebody else do that has had experience doing that over the years and can show you comps and can show you why your home is valued where it is. There's just a lot of misinformation out there right now. And I feel like, a lot of people that really don't know how this works are putting a lot of sensational headlines out there for clicks and views because that's how they get paid now. That's how they make money. That's how they make money on the internet. The more clicks, the more money they make. The more they can charge their advertisers on their websites. So, there's a lot to kind of consume here, if you will. And I think it's important to really drill it down and get the information from the professionals that have been doing this for a long time and are going to give you the facts, not the sensational headlines. So that's what I would suggest everybody does. There's going to be a lot of different models that come out of this. So the good news for consumers is that although many of these models are already out there and many sellers choose not to use those models because it's just not the best way for them to do this. They're busy with their jobs, their kids, moving, everything else. They choose to work with the broker, pay a negotiated commission that they agree to, and give it to somebody else to act as their fiduciary that they know, like, and trust. However, there are models out there that are different that allow sellers to, again, put their house on the market for a greatly reduced amount, but they also have to take on much more of the pain, if you will, of selling a home. And it's a lot of work. You have strangers coming into your house at open houses. You have strangers calling you up to say, hey, can I come see your house at such and such time? No longer, if you list it with one of these brokerages, is the brokerage necessarily going to handle all that? You're going to have to handle that. And certainly if you do it, if you sell your home on your own off the MLS, now you have to handle all of the marketing and all of the everything else that goes along with selling a home, including negotiating the price, the final price, including negotiating any home inspection issues that come up, and many other things as well. So, I think it's important just to keep all of this in mind and to, rather than just focus on the sensational headlines, get to the facts and talk to somebody that you know, like, and trust, that knows the facts, has been in the business for many years, like myself or many others that have been out there, selling homes, and get with someone that you trust, that when they tell you, hey, this is how it works, this is how it's going to work, this is what I suggest, and then make an informed decision based on the facts, not the sensational headlines, if you will. So I think that about covers it. I hope this has helped everybody in terms of how this has worked in the past and how this could potentially work in the future if the judge signs off on it and after the DOJ comments on it. My feeling as far as the settlement goes is I feel that the NAR just really gave in on this whole thing. I don't think they acted really and fought hard enough to get the best settlement possible. And, it strikes me as a little bit questionable that you have attorneys who are making 33 and a third percent. And that's what attorneys typically make when they settle a case for you. They typically make a third of the settlement. So if you settle for $100,000 in an accident case, an attorney is typically going to make 33% of that, or $33,000 plus expenses. And this class action lawsuit is being brought by attorneys that make 33 and a third percent plus expenses on a $418 million settlement over a 4-year period, against brokers that are in the end splitting 2.5% with their brokerage. And I think the system that we've used for many, many, many decades has worked like a charm for sellers and buyers. It has been completely transparent. My buyers have always known what I'm going to make when I help them buy a home. The sellers have always known what the full commission is and how it's split up between selling brokerages and listing brokerages. And it's just been completely transparent. And I think now, I think there will be more competition, because you want to keep in mind that, for instance, when I write an offer up for a buyer and my agreement with the buyer is that they'll pay me 2.5% for helping them find a home over a 1, 2, or 3 month period, whatever it is, the addendum that I write and include with that contract, or with that offer that we make to the seller, is going to include that addendum that states the seller agrees to pay X amount to the buyer's brokerage in order to help the buyer meet their obligation to the buyer brokerage that they're working with. So I may say 2.5%, but another broker may come in and maybe the agreement they made with their buyer is for 2% or 1.5%. So in that case, I think sellers can benefit and buyers can benefit in terms of lower commissions, possibly. So in the end, once this all gets sussed out, I think consumers are going to benefit. And I think there's going to be more models in addition to what's out there that's going to benefit everybody. And, innovation always benefits consumers. So, or in most cases benefits consumers. So I think that's going to be a real win for consumers. And I'm happy about that. That's awesome. Like I said, when I've worked with sellers in the past and in the future, I negotiate my commission. If I come in and say the commission is 5%, and what is going to happen with that 5% is 2.5% of that commission is going to be paid to the buyer's brokerage. If the seller comes back and says, Larry, I'd love to work with you. I love the way you sell homes. I love your marketing strategy. I love how you price homes. I love everything you do, but I'm not going to pay a 5% commission. I will, however, work with you if you work with me at a 4% commission. Well, then it's my choice if I want to work with that seller. And 99% of the time, I'm going to say, sure. that's fair. And let's go to work. Let's get your home sold. So sellers in the end have always had the ability to negotiate. The transaction and the fees that were being paid have always been transparent to all parties in the transaction. And I think the system we've used for decades has been great. And I think moving forward, it's going to be a little murkier until this all gets sussed out. So if you guys have any opinions on this, again, this is my opinion. I've talked to a lot of brokers who agree with me. I've talked to a lot of real estate attorneys who agree with me. And I'm sure there's a lot out there who don't agree with me. But whatever the case may be, if you'd like to comment on this, you can email me at lshakman, so LSHAKMAN at reo-property.com. lshakman at reo-property.com. And I'm happy to engage in a discussion that can frankly educate both of us. I want to hear how you feel, and I want you to know the facts and not just the sensational headlines. I want to end with this. Remember, we are on every Saturday live, coming to you from the studios of WCPT 820 AM at 9 a.m. sharp every Saturday morning. Tune in if you're in the Chicago metro area. And if you're not in the Chicago metro area, you can always watch us live every Saturday at 9 a.m. and most Wednesdays at 11:30 a.m. on Facebook at the Real Estate Radio Show podcast, or you can watch us on YouTube at Larry Shakman or on LinkedIn at Larry Shakman. So with that, I hope this has been educational. I hope I've helped kind of drill down what was and what may be. And in the end, I'm here to help you, whether you're looking to sell or buy, as are all the other brokers out there who work tirelessly on your behalf as your fiduciary. So with that, I'd like to say, have a great hump day and have a great weekend. We'll see you Saturday, 9 a.m., WCPT 820 a.m.
Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience.